You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Hi, I'm Mike, founder of DollarShaveClub.com. What is DollarShaveClub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high-quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are f***ing great. Each razor has stainless steel blades, an aloe vera lubricating strip, and a pivot head. It's so gentle a toddler could use it. And do you like spending $20 a month on brand name razors? 19 go to Roger Federer. I'm good at tennis. And do you think your razor needs a vibrating handle, a flashlight, a back scratcher, and 10 blades? Your handsome-ass grandfather had 1 blade and polio. Looking good, Pop-Up! Stop paying for shave tech you don't need. And stop forgetting to buy your blades every month. Alejandro and I are going to ship them right to you. We're not just selling razors, we're also making new jobs. Alejandro, what were you doing last month?
Not working.
What are you doing now?
Working.
I'm no Vanderbilt, but this train makes hay. So stop forgetting to buy your blades every month and start deciding where you're going to stack all those dollar bills I'm saving you. We are DollarShaveClub.com, and the party is on.
I know karate, I know jiu-jitsu, I drive like a gangster when I'm coming to see you, see you, see you, see you.
Not to be a backseat driver, but can you say for sure you got the best monthly payment possible on your auto loan? Could it be that you might have gotten a better deal by shopping the loan at a few places and have a lower car payment? Next time, before you go car shopping, visit Communication Federal Credit Union first. Our auto loan experts will find you a perfect loan and get you the lowest monthly payment we can. Communication Federal, your auto loan experts. Restrictions apply. Federally insured by NCUA.
Today, this breakfast isn't just breakfast. It might be the first McDonald's breakfast you're having at McDonald's again. This lunch might be a weekly tradition you hadn't had in weeks. And this dinner might be the first one you bought for not just you in a while. Whatever this order is for you, McDonald's will be here to take it.
Get more of the chicken you love with a delicious McChicken sandwich for $1. And for an extra buck, add a refreshing Dr. Pepper. Dining rooms are starting to reopen in certain communities at participating McDonald's. Cannot be combined with any other offer or combo meal.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Hi, I'm Mike, founder of DollarShaveClub.com. What is DollarShaveClub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high-quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are f***ing great. Each razor has stainless steel blades, an aloe vera lubricating strip, and a pivot head. It's so gentle a toddler could use it. And do you like spending $20 a month on brand name razors? 19 go to Roger Federer. I'm good at tennis. And do you think your razor needs a vibrating handle, a flashlight, a back scratcher, and 10 blades? Your handsome-ass grandfather had 1 blade and polio. Looking good, Pop-Up! Stop paying for shave tech you don't need. And stop forgetting to buy your blades every month. Alejandro and I are going to ship them right to you. We're not just selling razors, we're also making new jobs. Alejandro, what were you doing last month?
Not working.
What are you doing now?
Working.
I'm no Vanderbilt, but this train makes hay. So stop forgetting to buy your blades every month and start deciding where you're going to stack all those dollar bills I'm saving you. We are DollarShaveClub.com, and the party is on.
I know karate, I know jiu-jitsu, I drive like a gangster when I'm coming to see you, see you, see you, see you.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey!
Everybody, what a show we have for you tonight. As you know, Diane and I always talk about corruption. Tonight we're going to talk about willful blindness, plausible deniability, intentional ignorance, and conscious avoidance. And we always say, all we ask people to do is make it a deliberate attempt to make a reasonable inquiry, whether that be about a political candidate, or it be about your doctor, or it be about anyone that you're going to hire. Tonight, we're going to talk bad cop, fake cop, in Methuen PD corruption. And tonight, we're so fortunate to have with us Larry Smith, who is a retired Mass State Police sergeant. He's extensively experienced in fraud investigations. He's been assigned to a number of federal task forces, and we won't go into his whole entire autobiography because it would be too long. He's experienced, and he had the opportunity to be hired to do an investigation of an alleged forgery. And in case the Canton police chief is tuned in, it's not 260, it's 267-1. That has to be for money. This is a different kind of forgery. A police officer, Sean Fountain, Larry Smith, investigated and found that he forged his police documents to go to the academy. He was a fake cop. And Larry, can you tell us a little bit about how you came to do this investigation and how this fell into the Stern Group? That's where that's the company that you own. And can you tell us what Stern is? STIRM?
Yeah, Stern is just short. It was really kind of hard to try to find a name that you were able to get a .com. So we ended up shortening it from Security Training, Investigations, and Risk Mitigation.
So you know that we love risk mitigation. Diane she's an elected official in New Hampshire. I'm also a private investigator. And as you know, Larry, we each worked for over 25 years in the state police. We mitigate risk every day, and we work in the gray area of the law. But this investigation clearly falls outside the gray and clearly falls in intention to deceive. Can you tell us a little bit about Sean Fountain, who he is, where he worked, and the positions that he held?
Well, Sean Fountain, up until 2016, was a firefighter at a local town, and he was a city councilor in the city of Methuen as a resident. Sometime in 2016, Sean had the opportunity to become a intermittent police officer.
Can you explain to people, in case they're not familiar, what an intermittent police officer is not the same as a full-time police officer? You and I went through a grueling 26-week academy. You can't get into those details right now. That's a whole other show. But what does an intermittent mean?
Intermittent was a 120-hour course back when Sean Fountain alleges that he actually went to the academy. So it's 120 hours on Saturdays, and you'd go to the academy and they'd teach you basic law enforcement stuff. Wasn't even close to a full-time academy. There was no firearms. That was an add-on if you chose it. There was no driver training, things of that nature.
So it's not
that we have to deal with.
So is that basically what you would consider like a part-time police officer, for example?
It's yes, and
okay.
They weren't ever supposed to actually be full-time police officers.
So basically, he was qualified to do details, to work road jobs as an intermittent?
No, he never went to an academy. He never completed an academy.
But he's alleging that he was an intermittent?
Yes.
Okay. So he alleged that he went to an academy that he never went to, which is even more of a lie. How did he get a job? Who approved him to be a police officer? Who was there? We all know about departments here in Barnstable that don't have background checks, but how are you possibly a police officer without a background check?
Well, Sean didn't have a background check. We checked the financial records, which are public record. Everybody else that got hired at the time actually did have a background check done.
He's alleging he went to the academy in 1995.
1995, 1996. Yeah, he's used 3 different dates in that ballpark.
You know, when you don't tell the truth, Larry, it's hard to keep track of a lie, correct?
Yes.
You know, I want people to understand that as Larry, as an investigator, as a state police and as a fraud investigator and as a private investigator, if you're so licensed, next to a confession, what's the best thing that we can hope for a defendant, from a defendant?
Lie to us.
Is a lie. Lie to us. Right?
Lie.
Die, we know.
Lie is the
right?
best thing because it shows you're trying to hide something. You're either embarrassed or you're hiding.
I just have to like input here, knowing, experience from our chief of police in our town and the unbelievable detail that he goes into with background checks from, the polygraph test to, the other information, visiting with family, friends, checking the character. How did the chief at the time, obviously he should have presented something to the city council or to the town administrator or whoever handles the human resources, like this, a full packet is what is required. So somehow or another, this kind of slid under the radar, I'm assuming.
It was intentionally hidden, is what I would argue, not slid under the radar. The other 5 applicants went through just fine. They've completed all the application process. They did everything that they were supposed to do. It was Sean that didn't get the preferential treatment.
And we should add too, Larry, that, we expose corruption here. And we also have a Facebook page called Double D Uncensored. Not that kind of double Ds.
Yes.
But Diane and Darylyn, Double D. And we've noticed a lot of times that elected politicians will give preferential treatment to other people. And I think I neglected to say in the outset that Sean Fountain was a sitting town councilor. And not only that, but
he was the president of the town council at the time.
And he approved the police chief, and you call him the great moniker, the Don of Methuen PD. He was making $300,000 a year, Larry. Is that correct?
I don't know the exact amount, but it was when his contract was passed in 2017, it would have made him one of the top 4 or 5 paid police chiefs in the entire country. He would have been making more than the colonel of the state police.
Right, exactly. He makes more than Jack Mon, except Jack Mon's not going to prison. Solomon was indicted, correct? Solomon and Fountain were indicted?
They were arraigned. They were indicted and subsequently arraigned this past Friday. We would explain to our listeners
in case they don't know, because some of our listeners and some of our followers are really familiar with felons. But could you tell our listeners, what is an indictment? What does that mean?
Indictment is a legal process where the prosecution presents evidence before a jury of the accused individual's peers, and the evidence is presented, and they have the opportunity to return a bill that says they believe the law enforcement and charges should move forward for a trial, or they just turn out a
no bill or true bill.
No bill. Yep.
And this was a true bill, and and you say that they were indicted. And if I may, I want to read. I found this. This is a public record, and this is much like. I don't know if you follow us, Larry, but we've spoken a lot about Canton PD. And this is a letter. It's a call to action. And it is signed by Mike Simard. Is that right? Simard. Eva, Allison Masafi. I'm going to butcher these names. Jessica, but not the Jessica that just withdrew from state committee. This is Jessica Bino-Chiraro. Anyways, it's everybody that is a counselor in the town of Methuen. And here's what they say. Methuen must end its suffering from the wrongdoing of the past and to hold accountable wrongdoers. While Methuen has made considerable improvements that are within the city's power to make, Methuen must rely on the significant expertise, authority, and resources of your respective office to advance the city's quest for full justice. And I think what we're talking about nowadays, and we are in sort of a full-on police state of tyranny. And Methuen has fallen victim to it. Barnstable Police Department has fallen victim to it, as has Canton. And Larry, these are the only ones that we know about. and we know that some of the things are confidential, you can't speak about. But may I ask if you can let us know how many pages was this investigation that you conducted?
203 pages.
And this call for action says, in support of this application, that they ask that this report, which was allegedly impounded with the Superior Court? In which
It was Lawrence District Court where Sean was originally arraigned back in April.
All right, so could you tell our listeners what impounded means?
It means that they don't want the document being publicly disseminated as part of a public record or anything of that nature. There's different reasons why that can be. It could potentially compromise a future investigation. It could potentially put other individuals on notice that they may become targets of an investigation, things of that nature. So I understood why it was impounded at the time. I didn't like it, but I understood it.
And when was it impounded exactly? Because this letter that I found online is dated April 26th, 2023. And this would be prior to the indictment, correct?
Yes. The report was impounded on April 6th, 2023, this year. And it was impounded, the request, and subsequently agreed to by the defense, but it was filed by the prosecution. Prosecution requested the document be impounded.
And in watching the videos of some of the city councilors, there were a few that were quite upset that they felt that citizens should know exactly what's going on, and that the court, for whatever reason, is hiding this information from the taxpayers of Methuen. And I think that upset a lot of the council people. That would upset me greatly. And the reasons now, if they've been indicted, I would think that this report should be able to be released, whether it has to be redacted or not to protect employee identities. I don't know. But what is going to be happening with that? Will they be releasing it from being impounded?
I can't speak to that as to if they will or they won't. I hope that they will. But there's other reasons besides the actual investigation itself that would probably want to have that kept out of light.
Well, one of the things that I noticed is, everybody has a right to counsel, and that's our Sixth Amendment right, is we have right to counsel. And one of the things that I find, I'm sure you're familiar with Jewell versus the United States, Larry?
Yeah, I believe so.
And that was, Di, you remember this, right? When Jewell was accused of misconduct. And Larry, you're familiar with the case, correct? Could you give us the details of that and why it's important to seek out the truth and accountability?
Are we talking the Jewell from the Olympic bombing? Or
Yes.
Okay. They went with confirmational bias based off of prior investigations. You have an individual that had been Copp wannabe and was volunteering as a security guard and subsequently identified the package. And I believe a psychologist determined that he was hoping to use that to springboard into a law enforcement career. It didn't turn out to be Richard Jewell. He actually was the hero that he hoped to be someday. As we know, it turned out to be Eric Rudolph, the Olympic bomber.
So the precedent that's set with that case, is that not indicative of police have to do due diligence and they are obligated to tell the truth and basically not cover up, which it seems that the chief did. And these papers were passed over to also, the MPTC, which is the Mass Municipal Police Training Council. Is that correct?
Municipal Police Training Council. They're responsible for all the training certifications for every law enforcement official in the state.
So what's interesting about this is we put out a little teaser like we always do. And one of our followers had been arrested, actually, by Sean Fountain. And I can't tell you the exact language that they used, but they were actually sentenced. They were charged with a felony and sentenced to a year of probation. How does this possibly happen?
Well, how will it impact any future cases or any cases that he investigated?
Like, did he ever testify in a murder case or a rape case or any significant criminal case that may be jeopardized by this? Could this potentially be tantamount to how to fix a drug scandal? Because that also involved the Attorney General's office.
Unfortunately,
This is conjecture. We're not asking you for your privileged knowledge, but in the general sense,
I would think if you'd been notified of the fact that Sean Fountain had not gone to a police academy, had not been properly trained to be a police officer, was not qualified to be a police officer, and then you found out that he had forged the training records to be a police officer and was out there arresting and prosecuting people and writing search warrants, which is all public record now with the indictments. So he's going out and doing all these things without ever having gone to the academy. For all intents and purposes, it was, Darylyn, do you want to be a police officer? Yeah, here's a gun, here's a badge, report to work on Monday. That is essentially what happened here.
And you know this, right? We're on the state police, and we have what makes all state troopers part of a cohesive unit, at least prior to when I retired in 2018, is that we all have an experience of being in the academy. And it seems some are really bad, some are really funny, some, probably shouldn't be out in the public, and some are. I had 191 people in my academy, but they weren't always that big. And if you asked anybody, if they said, "Oh, I went to the State Police Academy," what's the first thing you would say to them?
What class?
What class? What year? I remember this one guy coming in to do his payroll, and he goes, I'm the 55th RTT, and I'm the last one in my class. I said, "Do you mean alive or on the job?"
Oh, jeez.
Because I'm the 71st RTT. What are you, Larry?
I'm the 73rd.
Okay. So we all know what RTT we are. We know the academy dates. We can tell you when we started, when we graduate. And this guy can't come up with
what year.
He's like 3 different dates. And so tell us about the Don. How does the Don, who made, $300,000, how does he figure into this? And I would assume there's some kind of political favoritism. And Di, you can speak to this. He's on the town council, and he's also an intermittent, and he's also voting for a raise for the chief. Is that how it works?
No. I mean, because, well, here's the first thing. When you're an employee of the town, it's a conflict of interest to be on the board that is responsible for your job.
Oh, we forgot to tell you. There was legislation passed. And the legislation, Di.
Yes.
Words matter.
Yes.
And you and I see that in our investigations, and I'm sure, Larry, at the Sturm Group, you notice people's, if they speak in the past tense or the present tense or specific detail in one thing, and then they totally skip it. Like, "Oh, I went to the store, and it was 9:15, and I was in a Yukon, and my hair was in a ponytail." And then, I don't know what happened, there was a dead person on my lawn. There's something missing there. So the vernacular that people use. Now, what I found interesting is I looked up this legislation that was passed, and it says if Sean Fountain was appointed as an intermittent, then blah, 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 blah. So I don't understand how someone can introduce legislation with if he was appointed as an intermittent. Because one, you're not appointed, right? You go to an academy, right, Larry? You graduate?
Yes. The one unique thing about Sean, and something that I've never seen and nobody I've ever mentioned this to has ever seen, is a person that goes to a police academy approximately 20 years before they ever step foot into a police department as an employee. So 20 years went by. Even if he had gone to the academy and had completed the academy, the intermittent academy, at the most he would have had is 5 years of being able to be an intermittent without doing any academy training. There's no records for any of that training prior to. There's 0 records. We have multiple forgeries that have been collected out of the MPTC in regards to training records.
And we know
and
that
I mean, I know,
certified-
I was going to say to be fair, like the New Hampshire police division of standards, they had a big brouhaha, like I'm going to say 4 or 5 years ago, where they did put in a lot of changes, not directly related to anything that was happening like this, but more because of what people felt was the secrecy of officers that, like the Lori list is what we call it up here, when an officer has violated the oath. So it had a lot to do with that, where they wanted more transparency. But it seems as though that there is a secretive aspect to these councils and these people that make up the councils and who make the decisions of, officers and what the trainings are. And I was very curious because, I'm looking at a timeline of, in Methuen and when you know how to read, obviously being on the board, how to read budgets, how to read when there's discrepancies is what I'll call it when it comes to vacation time and whatnot, and how all these kind of extra benefits were added. I mean, to have the Congress or the House pass a bill or whatnot stating that they're appointing Sean Fountain speaks far more of just a police chief.
They said that if he was appointed, which right. we don't pass legislation on ifs.
But here is the thing, okay? My question is, why would that even be put forth as a bill? Who put this forth as a bill? What is their relationship with the Dawn? Okay, because there definitely has to be some sort of a relationship for this bill to even get to the House to pass a measure just to name someone as a potential appointed police officer. There has to be a reason why and an explanation why.
So Larry can answer. I mean, Larry, are you able to answer why?
I mean, what that was, it was a home rule petition, and it basically allowed Sean to collect pay from one or the other, if I remember correctly. So he couldn't collect salary from the town council and collect from the police department. And I guess the understanding was that this was going to be for Sean to be able to work details in the town that weren't paid for by the town. Well,
and was he a town councilor at the time that this was presented? Yes. So he presented on his own behalf to get paid, but the wording is very particular. It says if
somebody else had to put that bill.
Oh, somebody else definitely did that.
That bill went up to and was signed by the governor at the time, and that's not something that Charlie Baker. Yes, but that's not something he would have been privy to or aware of. That's so far below him. It was the fact that you would have
had a state rep from Methuen that would have brought it forth, saying, "Oh, no one's going to question this. This is not a problem." So excuse me, I would find who the sponsor was. Maybe we need to sit there and ask them, why did you bring this bill forth? Why? Because this is an obscure bill that you would bring forth unless there is specific reasoning behind it.
There are so many whys that need to be answered in this investigation that haven't even begun to be asked. And when they get asked, doors get shut in your face. This has been probably the most challenging investigation because of the high-ranking officials that have been involved, the politically connected and the elected that have touched this case in some different ways.
Have you been feeling any type of feedback? Use that as a neutral word. Feedback for your investigation into this.
She means retaliation.
I wasn't going to say that, but I was being. I was being neutral.
I've actually had both. I had people that have reached out to me, finding my work cell phone, that called right after Sean was originally arraigned back in April, thanking me because they said it was so long overdue and things of that nature. That's never happened to me before. When things like that have happened, people call up and ask and thank you. But
we've experienced that, right, Don?
Oh, yes.
But on the other side of it, a little bit is what I can say at this point.
Let me ask you this. How hard is it? Because I don't know if you know this, but Di and I also do work in this realm. Now, none of our investigations have been 300 pages until probably, well, soon there will be. That's very involved, 300 pages. And I find that it's, when I first started to do PI work, I had taken the MCD class, much like you have. And it was my intent to train towns and police departments how not to get sued. And it wasn't until Diane and I had a chance to work a Barnstable school case that we realized that nobody really wants the truth exposed. So, being as you've done such an in-depth investigation, I find that attorneys are hired as, quote, investigators. And you and I have to be licensed and experienced. And if we write something that's false or misleading or we lie by omission, we are held and taken to the shed and whacked with the bamboo shoe. But why are these officials allowed to hide behind the cover of the government and hide information from us intentionally, willingly, and without conscience? How do we address something like that other than what we're doing here is talking about it, what the citizens of Methuen have done, what the citizens of Canton have done. And I'm not asking you as part of the STIRM group, which you can find you on Facebook, right? STIRM group. Yep. You're also on Twitter, and you have a Facebook. You have your own webpage. But what place is there for people that want to expose corruption?
Well, it's one of the hard things that you have to deal with, because when you talk about public corruption, all public corruption is political. All politics are local. Yes. And all local means everybody knows everything. So, you have big families in cities where they may have people working in the police, the fire, the DPW, the city hall, in different areas. They have their own businesses. They're all interconnected. So, all politics are always local politics. And when you start doing local public corruption investigations, it's not going to be long before you stumble across and make a few enemies. So if you're getting into this realm and thinking that you're going to be well liked, it's
try being a public official.
Well, what I said, Larry, when I ran for state senate, and I still say it to this day, is I'm not taking application for friends. Are you?
Not really.
You have enough friends?
Works for me.
But if you find someone that kind of fits into your puzzle, you'll be friends. But
yeah, exactly.
But the bottom line, this is where my angle, where I come from, and I know you guys with the investigative part, but people that are hardworking in the city of Methuen, that are paying their taxes, that expect their politicians, they expect their law enforcement officers to be above board, to be honorable, and they find out that this is happening, and it's happening probably by people in the town, of the higher ups again, that know all about this and haven't done anything about it. And the fact is they should be able to see what is going on in their towns. And it's I think it's horrendous that the battle that they have to go through just to get information that they shouldn't have to. And that's my aspect of coming at it with working with Darryl, and is I want people to be able to get the information. I will guide them to where they can find the information on their own, because it's a tangled web out there that is weaved, and it's really frustrating.
Here's part of the problem. They're covering up for mistakes and errors and intentional acts of other people. These are people that all work into the same realm. They all interact together. They're senior officials, things of that nature. It's not an easy thing to do. And, there's some powerful people. I mean, the report, I suspect, is partially impounded because it was written with a poison pen. Because it was.
What do you mean by poison pen? Explain that.
Poison pen means it was opinionated. It was also pointing out it was critical of individuals for failing to do things that otherwise you would have thought they would have done. For example, prosecuting somebody when you know for a fact that the records are forgery, that you know they didn't go to the academy. You don't want to do the investigation. You don't want to prosecute the case.
Kind of like hiring a felon, and you don't do a background, and that person's a felon. I mean, he's not a felon, but he's a police officer.
Think about the ramifications, which is their angle is going to be. They're thinking about, oh my God, he had in his 7-year career, let's say 300 arrests, which now every single one of those arrests and everything associated and affiliated with it are now open up to inspection, because that's exactly what's going to be happening. So, whether his superior officer going all the way up to the chief covered this whole thing up, they need to be responsible for exactly what happened. And they need to be the ones that explain it to the families of perhaps the victims out there, that there may be a case that could, be overturned now in court because this guy was never even a police officer.
Well, there are several cases like that. I mean, every one of the Fountain victims, we'll call them, because they were arrested by Sean Fountain. So all those individuals, it's not 300, but it's under 100.
I was just using that as a number.
It's a significant number. More than one is too many in this case.
Yep.
So in reality, Sean's turned around. He's arrested all these individuals under false pretenses. He was never qualified, never eligible, never be a police officer.
But I guess I have one question. To me, if I was a law enforcement officer, this would be something that would make me so angry, because that's basically dirty cop. But it would make me so angry because, the both of you, as you stated, you went through all your training, you put in the time, and yet you have someone here that's basically could potentially be higher than you on the salary scale because he kept getting bumped up through the ranks. That doesn't have the experience that was even needed. I mean, it's mind-boggling to even think that this happened, and it happened obviously maybe in other PDs. I don't know.
Well, with the MPTC record keeping and the issues that we encountered during the investigation, you would have thought that the state would have been a little bit more concerned after the incidents that they had with the drug labs. And with their anytime you have an issue with an accreditation agency, you have to be concerned about the rest of the documents and things of that nature. And there's too many unanswered questions that lie there. How? Why? They weren't overly cooperative. Matter of fact, they weren't cooperative at all. And
when you say they, who do you mean, Larry? Just to clarify, who?
The executive director, the chief operating officer, the chief of staff, general counsel, the record access officer, who intentionally withheld public records from.
And that's against the law, correct? To intentionally withhold public records.
If they are deemed as public records, they have to turn them over. They have to turn them over.
And what they do is they use this. I'm sure, Larry, you're familiar with this, Chapter 66, and what they say is, we are not going to give you those records because they could potentially interfere with an investigation that, they would be investigative means and ways revealed that are done outside the purview and outside the view of the public. We basically don't want to give those things away. That's typically why things are impounded or a search warrant is impounded, so you wouldn't let other people know what you found or who told you what. But Larry, this seems extremely suspect that the town is asking, and if I may read from this, it says, we are unapologetically blunt and united in our call for review and action by your respective offices. For years, Methuen has regrettably suffered from conscious shocking behavior by selected persons previously entrusted with the public, fiscal, and public safety in our city. Now, I know and you know that if I pulled somebody over and they said that I said F you or that I was rude to them, or as a matter of fact, even if I was in buying my food in the laundromat and I had a state police there, they could say, oh, this girl was rude to me and she blah, 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 and call the state police. But if I was a dentist, that wouldn't happen. If I was a landscaper, that wouldn't happen. And we hold police to a higher expectation, which I feel is warranted. But why aren't these prosecutorial institutionalized organizations, where's their oversight? Where's the oversight for the Post Commission? The Post Commission was created, and they were supposed to root out this evil, correct?
Yes.
$100 an hour. And if you look at the million pages of the Post Commission, those people are paid $100 an hour, and they're able to receive gifts. Have you ever seen that written?
What?
That you're able to receive gifts?
Why?
Well, who knows? Ask them, because they often pass over investigations in post. In case people don't know, this was prior to 2021, and I believe that this all came up with Fountain. But this should have been red flagged. How do you decommission someone who was never a police officer?
They still didn't really know that he wasn't a police officer. I can't get into the specifics of when they found out, but when Sean was laid off in July 30th of 2021.
And laid off means, explain, it doesn't mean he was fired, correct? Laid off, was he administratively suspended, or was he...
He was demoted back to intermittent, and the intermittent officers were laid off.
Okay, laid off, just explain what that means. Like, laid off is there's not enough work to fulfill the position?
Budgetary restraints,
Okay.
not enough work to be had, something of that nature. So it was a legitimate process for them to get rid of these other individuals.
So, this is incredulous, isn't it, Larry? Would anybody believe that a police officer was, and listen, we both love the state police, right? We both had a great career. It taught us a lot. It fed us, it clothed us, it took care of our families, it paid for their school. So by no means are we slamming police.
No.
We both have an expectation. Do your job and do it correctly. Or you know what? Get the hell out. We don't need weak police leaders who do backbends and political favors, because if we keep doing that, we are going to have a bunch of mamby-pamby kids that have never been punched in the face, and they're going to be political pawns to encroach on the constitutional rights of citizens.
And, the selection process is the selection process for a reason. Just like when you go into the military, they have proven tactics and techniques that work to build up the individual the way that they need them to be built. Law enforcement has the same process. And, if you lower the standards, you're going to get a lesser individual for whatever reason that may be. It could be academically, it could be physically. They might not deal with stress. I mean, there's a reason why it's a stressful environment, because being a law enforcement official is a stressful situation. Not all the time, but some of the time.
I don't think anybody understands exactly the stresses that were put under the things that we've seen. And I'll recall a graphic. I'll recall a graphic example. And so if you have a weak stomach, don't listen to this. But, we don't have to follow those kind of rules because we're not guided by the FCC. My husband said to me, "How was your day?" And Larry, you'll appreciate this. And I shared honestly, and I said, I never knew that when someone shot themselves in the face, that their brain could splatter 30 feet and 10 feet wide. And I said, they didn't look real. And he goes, that's not right. I go, what do you mean? He goes, that's not right that you say that. And I said, you just asked me how my day was. And I just told you if you don't want to know how my day was, I'm perfectly fine discussing it at the green table with other people that I work in this investigative unit for. But that's what we're dealing with on a daily basis. We see people jump in front of cars. We see people whose heads are cut off with a knife. I mean,
you see things that the normal, but you guys see things that the normal citizens don't see, what don't want to see, and it's
so. If you can't take somebody yelling at you, or you can't take someone being unkind to you, or you can't take someone calling you names, or if you get sick of the sight of blood, then this job isn't for you.
That's why I was not a police officer.
You're a bad person. It's not saying you're a bad person. It's just, look, I can't be an artist. There's no physical way for me to be an artist. I have zero artistic ability. And so...
I can't sing, but I do it anyway. I did karaoke a couple weeks ago, but that doesn't but some things you're not like. Diane fell last November 3rd, and there was 3 of us cops there. 2 of us were retired state police. The other one was from another agency, and we looked over, and she was on the ground. And of course, we walk over we were like 3 cops doing a detail with our back turned to traffic, like kibitzing, talking. Next thing I do, I see Diane, and she's on the ground. She's like, I think I broke my ankle. And we're all like, you ain't bleeding. You ain't crying.
Can you wiggle your toes?
Can you wiggle your toe? And we're like,
Yep.
You're fine, get up. Turns out, not only were all her ligaments damaged, but her leg was broken in 3 places. And Larry, she did not cry.
Nope.
She did not whimper. I'm telling you. She was like, Diane, I love you. I mean, you are a freaking rock star in my book. But that's how we deal with those kind of things, right? So if you can't take stress, it's the salient point. If you aren't put through the rigmarole and call it whatever you want, hazing, whatever, you don't belong. You definitely don't belong arresting people and taking people's constitution. If you lie about who you are, you lie about your education, you lie about where you worked, you're a liar. And I don't stand for that. Do you, Larry?
No, I mean, the lying aspect of it's a conscious thought. I mean, telling the truth comes natural. If you're going to lie, like I said, it's for 2 reasons. Either you're embarrassed or you're trying to hide something. Those are the only 2 logical explanations. And, there's a lot of stuff that in this investigation was the most complex investigation I've done. It's a lot of information. It's a lot of data. It's a lot of
we know, don't we, Die?
People.
Yes. I think when you went into this investigation, I mean, the last thing probably in anyone going into an investigation about a police officer is going to be that they fake their credentials, because that's like practically unheard of. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's unheard of, but something like that is.
It is.
Is it really?
The first thing, because there's people, that stolen valor is a real thing.
Correct. That is correct. But I mean, I'm talking about police officers.
There was a training issue with CPR, I believe, and EMTs up in the North Shore somewhere at one point, not too long ago. And people actually went to jail.
I mean, our producer, Rick, you're there, right? I don't know if he's going to...
Yeah, I'm here.
Well, Rick, I mean, you went through the full background check when you became a police officer, correct?
I went through it several times because even after I wasn't active in the PD anymore, I was a security officer, private investigator, and a skip tracer. So I've been through multiple background checks.
You're badass. I love you.
But I mean, excuse me, you've been listening to this, and I'm sure you're like, knowing what you've gone through, the fact that someone was as high as being a detective in a city, and it's a fairly good sized city, that had fake credentials. To me, is, looking at it from, being on the political aspect of it, I'm horrified at how this could have even happened, because it leaves the town in such a liable position when it comes to lawsuits. I mean, they can just kiss their money goodbye, because there's going to be some massive lawsuits filed against Methuen.
Yeah,
whatever other agency.
Well, not to mention the fact that now that they know that this guy is not anything that he claimed to be, any arrests that he's made are now suspect to being reviewed. I mean, you guys have already touched on a lot of this. The thing that it seems weird to me that he was able to fake his credentials that well. I don't really know how he would have managed to do that without some kind of help. But I mean, at the same time, there was a movie made not too long ago about a guy that pretended to be a pilot for like 3 years and was hopping flights all the time. So I mean,
dear Lord,
it can be done.
Oh my God! Now you scared the shit out of me. I'm already scared to fly on a plane. Now I'm gonna be like, "Where's your creds? Let me see the last flight."
Well, no, he was always smart enough to never actually try to fly the plane. He would just always use the planes to deadhead back, so he didn't have to pay. But he actually even figured out how to forge paychecks. So I mean, he was getting money from the airline. It was weird. You guys have probably heard of the movie. It's called Catch Me If You Can. It's actually based on a true story.
Right, I love that. But we know that there's changes in the law every year. Larry, you can attest to this because I think you worked at a HIDA group, right? Did you work DA like I did? So, when people start interjecting their feelings into the law, and they said, well, we feel that having a syringe shouldn't be a negative connotation. So we're going to allow people to have a syringe and a needle. Okay, great. Okay, so now if I stop this girl and I think she's being prostituted by some guy, she's got a tattoo. I don't know who you are. She said she's from New Jersey, but she's got no accent. She doesn't know what township she's from. And she has a syringe and a needle. I have to let her go. The guy's got $1,000 in his pocket. I have to let him go because it doesn't feel good to arrest people for a needle. So those are changes in the law every year. So how do we know? Obviously, this guy wasn't not a cop. So how is anybody justifying any of this? And how are they justifying a governmental agency for keeping this report a secret? I want to see this report myself. I think the city of the people in Methuen want to see it. I think Diane wants to see it. I think Rick wants to see it in Kansas City. We all want to.
Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma City. Jeez, my gosh, sorry.
You keep trying to put me. You keep trying to put me in Kansas. What am I, Dorothy?
I know. Click your heels, bitch. I want to go home. I'll click my heels. Wait, that's right. Right?
You will be horrified when you get to actually read this report. If you ever get to read this report.
Say that again, Larry.
You'll be horrified when you get to read this report. If you ever get to read this report.
And
they don't want this report out. There's a reason why they used my report as the foundation for them to go do their investigation with the Essex County Attorney General.
Were you ever interviewed?
No.
So they used your work product to indict two people?
They used it as a roadmap to do their own investigation that they had to be shamed into doing.
Rick, what do you think about not interviewing Larry prior to this indictment? I mean, they must have had to confirm his allegations, correct?
I don't know. So let me make sure that I'm clear on this. They didn't speak to him before they used his report?
Larry, did they speak to you before they indicted people?
No, I have not been interviewed. I haven't been before a grand jury. I haven't been spoken to by anybody from the Attorney General or the District Attorney's Office.
So who released your reports? Were they subpoenaed by Methuen PD? Are they the product of?
No, they're the product of Methuen. The product was created for Methuen, paid for by Methuen, and given to Methuen, and then subsequently distributed to the city council and the city solicitor and the mayor.
But was it ever considered any type of sworn affidavit or anything?
Not for mine, no.
Wow. I got nothing. I don't understand how because I mean, if they would have had you swear to it somehow, then I could kind of see maybe
they were able to
talk to you.
The entire investigation, and that's what they want to do. They want to reclamate the investigation so that they could keep the other aspects that they don't want out in dark.
Now, we have the letter, obviously, that the city of Methuen and all of city council wrote. What rights? Yep. Because the city of Methuen is the one that actually paid you for the investigation. What rights does the city of Methuen have, and why can't they just go ahead and release the report?
Right, they paid for it, correct?
Yeah.
That's something they'd have to take up with the judge.
But why? I mean,
I understand.
Because the judge impounded the report, which meant any copies of it, anybody that had any copies of it, it's also impounded, I'm sure, as well, which means the attorney for the city of Methuen is probably the one that's the holder of the report right now, even though all of the city councilors probably read the report already. They probably just cannot speak about it. They just can't speak publicly about it.
Right, but that's why they were all upset.
What about the Whistleblower Act, Larry?
Not a big fan of the Whistleblower Act, from what I understand. It doesn't necessarily do a whole lot of protection, but at this point, it's a little premature. But
not for you, for you. But what about this? The town councils. I mean, I would vote for somebody who released a report and claimed protection under the Whistleblower Act. I'd vote for that person every day, all day, 24/7.
But what are they going to do? They'd have to release the report after they've been told by their city solicitor it's an impounded document.
Or they sue.
And that's what I was thinking. They have the ability to sue in the Superior Court and stating that the public's knowledge far outweighs they've already had the 2 indictments, and unless they're going after others, the public aspect of this should far outweigh any type of investigation that the AG's office or any agency that they might be trying to protect. And I think that's something that the City Council really needs to address and look at, because that is going to get this whole investigation and the whole report out there.
What about duty to act?
Because any of the Fountain victims are entitled to the Copp under the Brady v. Maryland, 1963.
Right. Exactly.
They're entitled to that document. There's a whole issue about when they got notified or if they were notified. That's a huge concern.
We're coming to the end of the show, but hoping that we want to obviously definitely follow up on this. Obviously, this is going to be something that's going to be going on for the next 2 months. Would you be willing to come back and update us? And we'll see what we can do, if anything, to start putting pressure on this. And
that's the only way it's going to get out, is if there's a public outcry at this point. They've managed to insulate it well enough that they're going to hide this. And there's some serious concerns that, I can't talk about right now. But if that report comes out, there's plenty of questions that need to be answered. And that's
Where can we find you, Larry? Where can everyone find you?
They can find me at the Sturm Group, www.sturmgroup.com. And the number is 617-245-4111.
And they can also find you on Facebook and Twitter as well. Where can they find you there?
Yep, under the Sturm Group at Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
Okay, so anyone listening out there, that wants to find out more about this, I think we need to really start making an outcry on this and stop with the hiding behind closed doors is what I would call it at this point.
Maybe it's a good thing I'm about to start a news organization.
Issue with prosecutorial discretion and how it's used to potentially just blow things off of a political nature that they don't want to handle.
Right. Rick, you had a question?
Not really a question as much as maybe it's saying maybe it's a good thing that I'm about to start a news organization.
Yes, and that's all right. So anyways,
Rick Robinson, you can find him at Rowdy Rick Robinson 73.
It's at Rowdy Rick 73.
And you can find, he also writes for Twitchy, and he is an unbelievable executive producer. Diane and I are so grateful for you, and Larry, we're grateful for you to be our host, and we hope that you'll come back.
Thank you very much.
Have a great week, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.